How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Woodlander Hobbies. Now, there has been a diorama I've been wanting to do for a long time, and this finally just settled it. It's always good to have a little bit of extra electricity around the house, so let's make an old-fashioned water mill, complete with a waterfall and a mill worker. I had a lot of fun with this one, and I hope you enjoy. The first thing I had to do was make the base. I did this by using some pieces of pine wood that I had on hand, glued and taped together so I had a nice strong base. For the terrain, I had some XPS foam that I could use, so I cut and glued it onto the base so I could start the fun but not so fun part. After that was done drying, I removed the weight, then started marking out where I wanted the river to go. Then I brought out one of my favorite tools, hot wire knife. Then I just sculpted away at the foam till I had something that looked gray and rock-like. I then textured all the rocks with a tinfoil ball. And then I started by putting some Mod Podge on all of the rock surfaces to protect it from the resin and seal it a little bit better than the plaster could. Now, there were a lot of gaps in the sides of my diorama, so I went in with some wood putty to try and fill them in. This really isn't the best way to fill in gaps, but I didn't have anything else, so it'll work for me. Next, I made the mill. I did this with some balsa wood that I had. I just traced and cut the pieces that I needed and just gave it some texture with a wire brush. This adds really nice grain. Also added some additional details like some panel lines and nail holes, and then just glued them together until I had something that looked like a wall. I also added some windows because what's a house without windows? Then I glued the gable ends on and put a beam on the top and glued the roof slats. And then it's done. By this time, the Mod Podge had dried enough on the diorama that I could start adding the plaster. I did this using Boylai Hobby Time's famous plaster mix. If you want to know the recipe, I'll leave a link to one of his videos in the description. And then I just put it all over the diorama in every spot that needed it, except for the sides. I'll get into that in a minute. For the sides of the diorama, I just added paint and Mod Podge to it. Now, for some reason, when you're doing resin and you put plaster on the sides, it sticks too well to it. So if you just mix Mod Podge and paint, then it doesn't stick as well, but just well enough that it won't rip off the sides. So it's better when you're doing resin when you do it this way. Then I just added sand everywhere where sand would naturally be hanging out. And I just seal it with isopropyl alcohol and watered down white glue, and then just set that aside to dry. After it was dry, I took the model and the house outside to give it a nice coat of black primer. Now for the paint, it's just going to be a little bit boring. we're just gonna lay down a regular gray on all the rock surfaces, but keeping those dark recesses dark because I really like how it looks. And then for the land, we're just gonna be doing something like a terracotta brown or something like that. For the spots that are gonna have water, I decided to try something new, which was putting on some rust, some green, and some blue and trying to blend it together, making it look like the deepest areas would be blue and the lightest areas would be kind of a greenish rust. I don't know, it probably only works with opaque resin, but we'll try it out, see what happens. And then I layered on a black wash on all of the rock surfaces. And then I gave the cliff face a variety of off-white dry brushes. I don't really remember what I did though. For the house, I started with an overbrushing of burnt umber, trying my best to keep those dark recesses dark. And then I went in and layered on something like a beastie brown, which I don't really know if added anything. But it needs something else. Oh, I got it. Time to bring out my favorite something like a tan thing. And then I just start layering up all that dust, and I think that helps it pop a little bit. For the windows, I had some of this plastic from an old iPad protector and painted black. I think it'll make some convincing windows. Then I started on the waterfall. I did this by taking some of that same plastic that I used from that iPad protector, hot glued to the base, and then I started building up the waterfall with some UV resin. I tried my best to make it look like a waterfall, so I used a toothpick to kind of stroke it in downward positions. And then at the top, I built a dam with hot glue. This stuff will dry really foggy, but it's gonna get covered all up with white paint later, so I'm not too worried about it. For the wheel itself, I had a relative help me with it. We designed it ourselves and lasered it out. And I am really happy with how it turned out. Then I painted the wheel. I wanted it to match the house pretty closely, so I just used some of the same paint I used as the base layer for the house. And I'll dry brush it later with some sort of color, but this is what it looks like right now. I learned a new technique for applying dust. When you shake it around, it'll catch the dust in the air. Just like that. See if you can guess what color it is. Then it was time to do the resin. I'm going to be using shallow pour resin with different colored pigments in it to sort of match the paint job I did on the bottom of the river. Fun fact, this is actually the first time I've ever done resin on this channel before. I've done resin 3 other times before this, and they've all turned out okay, I guess. Definitely far from professional. But if you want to see some really impressive resin work, go check out CT Diorama's X-Wing Starfighter build. It was amazing, and it was really great what he did with the resin, and some techniques I never even thought of. It was truly an amazing Star Wars build. You should definitely go check it out. I then popped all the bubbles as they rose with a heat gun, and then covered it up so no dust would get on it, and set it aside to cure. While that was curing, I decided to grab a little man to work on my mill. So I just threw him on my painting handle and just threw a quick and easy paint job on him, and then just set him aside to dry. By this time, the resin had cured enough that I could take off the sidings and keep doing my work. So I grabbed some isopropyl alcohol and peeled off the plastic, and then trimmed off the little lip that I guess all resin builds have. And then I added some ripples with some UV resin around the water wheel to make it look like it was actually spinning. And then I added some more ripples with some Mod Podge gloss, just stippling it on and airbrushing it into different rippling motions. And then I added a white paint job over all of the waterfall to give it a rushing water effect. The next step was adding some static grass. I just used the 8mm static grass because it has more of a wild look. And then I just put it all over the land areas where I thought best fit. I also added some variety in the form of flocking. Just different colors of green and brownish green. This was looking too much like a prairie to me, so I decided I had to have some trees. So I planted one. Or 2. Or 5. These trees were just a little bit too dark, so I sprayed the whole thing in a scenic cement and then added some light green flocking on top of it. I also went back and added a gloss varnish onto the water wheel to make it look wet. Then I put on my little mill worker, painted the sides of the diorama black. Then after some additional details, the model was done. Well, that is it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did making it. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you on the next video, everybody.